kind of just like this. It's a cross between the skull and the profile a little bit. So you're going to end up with something that's going to be relatively square with the top of the head coming up above that. So my first step is deciding, just like with the skull, I'm looking at how much of the face I'm seeing versus the side of the head. And then I'm going to break, again, looking at it just between the eyebrows, looking at where the center is, and then thirds. So I have the same basic framework, and I'm of course doing this much darker than you need to do. All the more complicated things are going to happen in this center third, which is going to be the eyes and the nose, right? I'm going to give myself, I'm going to look at the distance between the eyebrow and the corner of the eye and give myself a line that comes across. And it's going to usually be about a third of the way down. So this is going to be the center of the eyes, right? This framework stops being important as soon as I start dealing with the features. Like, this is a starting point, but once I start actually drawing the features in, I'm looking at how the features relate to each other and not locking myself to this framework. And the eyes and the nose have to work together. So I'm going to try to, those have to be drawn kind of at the same time to kind of adjust them. I'm going to start with the iris on the far side. And I'm going to do it as an ellipse. So I'm not drawing just what I can see of the eyeball, but I'm acting as if I can see the whole iris. And the reason for that is, if you draw just what you can see, too often the irises will get different shapes or different sizes within that. If you're only seeing that little bit coming down below the eyelid, it's easy for them to not be the same shape exactly or the same size. So it'll look like they're looking in two different directions. And then I'm going to look at how close the bridge of the nose comes out to that iris, and usually it comes out almost to the edge of the iris. And I'm going to draw the nose as a three-dimensional shape. So it's not just going to be like a check mark, but I'm going to bring in the tip of the nose and the bottom. So I've done just what we did with the opening, that nasal cavity in the skull. I've taken a shape. I tipped that up way too much. You know, the bottom of the nose would be something like this, so the nose kind of coming out with the center. And I've taken this, and when I move the center over, it takes that shape and does this to it, right? I've basically leaned the shape over. So that's what you're seeing here. So you're looking at, like, not everybody's nose will tip down like that. You'll have cases where the tip of the nose comes like this, and it barely coming off, you know, up, tipping up at all. Like, it's very kind of flat. Center of the nose would move over. To find the other iris, I usually bring my pencil so it just covers that far nostril. So basically giving myself a line like this. Look at how far back the tear duct is from that, and how far back the iris is from the tear duct. So I have something like this, and it starts looking really robotic, but it's a framework that keeps everything lining up, keeps everything looking the same direction, that kind of thing. The other thing that you'll notice is if I go from pupil to pupil, right, down to the bottom of the nose, it kind of gives me a square, kind of close to a square. If you find that going pupil to pupil in yours gives you something that looks like this, then you know you're stretching the nose out too long. Center of the mouth comes out from the center of the nose, down about a third of the way. I made that third too big. So I'm starting center of the mouth, where it ends on this side, and where it ends on that side. So the mouth will start I've got the center coming down. Give myself a line for the opening. So I right away mark off the foreshortened center. So this side of the mouth is smaller. Then that shape will do this. The corners of the mouth will bend down. So I'm taking this shape and doing this to it. So it comes straight across and then bends down. So stretch out a little bit. So you notice I haven't done anything with the outside of the face yet. I'm going to lighten this up because it's so dark. So you might not be able to see this as much anymore, but it's still there enough that I can see it, and I'm going to go kind of refine those shapes. So I'll start with the nose, come down, maybe there's a little bump in the bridge, tip come out, changes direction. I'm going to take the edge of the nose, not following this line that I drew. I'm not coming down this edge. I'm coming to the center. So I'm not bringing it out to the edge. I'm coming to the center of the nose. So this edge of the nose comes down to my center line, which leaves me this little bit of the far nostril on the other side. So it automatically kind of gives you that other nostril. If you don't do it that way, if you do it like kind of just as an edge or do the nostrils first, this nostril will come up over this edge, and it can't. This edge of the nose is coming in front of that far nostril. So if that opening of the nostril starts to encroach past the center, it's going to look odd. The other nostril, I'm going to start, you'll like straight lines. First line I'm going to make is a little straight line that kind of goes like that, and then it angles down. This line gives me kind of the other half of the tip of the nose. The eyelid will come up just above the pupil and hook to the far side of the eye. So you're not seeing that far corner. And then if you're seeing an eyelid, not everybody has. Sometimes the brow will kind of start right at the top. The eyelid kind of gets hidden. But if somebody has pronounced eyelids, they'll go straight up from that point and bend down. Lower eyelid will do the same thing. Come out, you have that thickness, bend around, and then the lower eyelid straight down. One of the things I look at when I'm bringing the nose out is this little triangle. Like how much of that cheek I'm seeing. The far eye will do the same thing. Comes up, has that same hook coming around. The only thing that's going to change it is then you will see the tear duct get stretched out as a separate shape. You don't want to do that all as one line. Like you don't want to take the eyelid and kind of do this with it. Some people it is more subtle, but this change in that curve showing the tear duct, usually if you look, you'll see it. Eyelid straight up. Sometimes on this eye, you'll just see that as a shadow. Again, I've got the thickness. Lower eyelid comes around. Okay, mouth. I've already got the opening doing this, right? Upper lip will come up, hook to this corner. That's one of the reasons you want to mark off the center on that right at the start, because this side of the mouth almost always gets stretched out. Like if you don't give yourself a definite ending point and a center, that will start getting way too stretched out. Because it's hard to force yourself to make that little curve. This side stretches out a little bit, there, comes down, stretches to the corner on this side. Lower lip, thickest spot right below, comes around and hooks. So if you do this shape for the opening of the mouth, the lips kind of drawing them so they go, and I'm going real quick here, but the lips will come right down to that. it kind of automatically gives you that foreshortened curve. You're of course going to look at what's in front of you. Not everybody has, full lips. Sometimes not all lips are even top and bottom. But I'm doing it so it's fairly obvious. But some people have much thinner lips than that, and you usually get like a little corner. Sometimes you'll see on this side the corner actually is like a stacked form, where the pears, we did one thing in front of the other. Sometimes you'll see the lips kind of in front of that little corner that comes up. So now I'm going to do the edge of the face to tie this all together. And it's going to be separate lines. I'm not going to do it all as one line. The brow kind of comes up, hooks, pulls down, just like this eyelid. It has that same kind of curve. The lower eyelid kind of repeats, or the cheek kind of repeats the curve of the lower eyelid. It'll hook like this. And they're not coming out real far. Like if you take your hand and lay it up against your cheek and your brow, you'll actually feel your eyelashes on the inside edge of your hand. So it's not coming out that much farther than your eyelid. Then from where the cheek comes out, straight down. Even if you have somebody that has kind of fleshy cheeks, it's easy for that to get too exaggerated, but overall it comes straight down like this. Then when you get to the mouth, the teeth will actually push that out slightly. So you get this curve kind of coming in front of that, comes around, and then you'll see the chin kind of overlap that. So the edge of the face is tying all these together, but it's influenced by these forms. And then I would line the ear up the same way. The only thing that would usually change with the ear is that it might get a little narrower because you're looking across it. You'll see things like the front of the earlobe, that thickness. And then this part of the ear that wraps around the outside after the earlobe splits, right? It kind of divides in two. This back part of it, when it comes around to the front, since now you're seeing the front of that, it'll actually get thicker. So right in here, that part of the ear will look thicker and then gets kind of thinner as it comes around to the back. Shadows would be, for the most part, eyelid cast. Try to set your model up, if at all possible, with strong overhead light. But shadow cast on the eyeball itself. Brow would have shadow. Lower eyelid would have shadow. Cheek catches light. Tip of the nose, dark, right? Bottom half, the nostril gets dark. You would see a shadow that kind of bends like this. That helps to give you, again, the shape of the tip of the nose. And that, if the tip of the nose is kind of pointed, it would do the same thing, where you would have the center move over, so that shape kind of stretches like this, right? Like short angle, long angle. Upper lip, dark. Lower lip catches light, and then you have shadow underneath the lower lip. So your shadows would run something along these lines. You would also have an important shadow becomes the one between the eyes, between the brows, where you have on this section of the nose, you have this shadow where that bends in. But where it goes across the nose, you'll see it straighten out and then angle with the nose. So it kind of comes down like this and helps you shape the nose. The side of the nose generally will have a little bit of shadow, but it's not going to be near as dark as the bottom of the nose, and it's not going to be as dark as what happens here between the eyes.